besties, and welcome to another Genshin theory. I didn't come up with everything for today's theory, but since it was so heavily talked about in my Discord server for Genshin theories, I thought I should cover it and do my best to add to it. I can't find who originally came up with this theory, so I apologize for not crediting them, but if you guys know who created it, let me know in the comments or on Discord, or any of my social media is linked in the description so I can credit them. You probably noticed this already, but each Archon's gnosis is shaped like a chess piece. We've only seen Venti's and Zhongli's, and both of them are different chess pieces. Venti's is queen and Zhongli's is rook. We haven't seen A's, and at this point I doubt we will, but I'll get into that later. Before I analyze why each Archon's piece is what it is, I need to talk about why every gnosis is a chess piece in the first place. As always with these theories, everything goes back to Celestia. The Archons aren't the highest authority in Teyvat, but the three celestial gods are. Those celestial gods are the ones who created the position of Archon in Celestia, which directly caused the Archon War. They've always had control over the Archons, given that they gave them the power that they currently have. An Archon's gnosis is their connection to Celestia, and the celestial god's easiest way to control them. The simplest storytelling method miHoYo could have given us to represent that would be the gnosis being chess pieces. That shows how much control the celestial gods have over the Archons. Figuring out which Archon's gnosis is which chess piece is difficult, but not impossible. We've seen two gnosis so far, so let's start with the first one. Venti's is queen, which feels fitting to me. Queen isn't the most important piece, but it's the most powerful. It can move as far as it wants in any direction it wants. Queen moves the most freely out of all of the pieces, which makes sense for the god of freedom. Venti may not be the most powerful Archon, but he was the first to gain the title, so that also fits for him having the most powerful chess piece. Zhongli's gnosis is rook, which is the second most powerful piece. Zhongli was the second Archon to gain the title. Rook can move as far as it wants in any turn, but only in straight lines. That kind of rigid, straightforward behavior is befitting of Zhongli's personality. We know A had a gnosis at some point before Yai handed it over to the Fatui, but we never got to see it. My guess is that A's chess piece would be king. The king is the only piece that has to stay on the board for the entire game, so once your king is gone, you've lost. A is the god of eternity, so naturally she'd want to be around until the very end. The king barely moves at all, only able to move one square at a time and within a very small range. King is the most important piece, but not the most powerful. I think that fits A pretty well. She's not the strongest or oldest Archon, but she's the closest to the heavenly principles. She said it herself. As for the other Archons, we can't really say much right now. But we know that only two Archons have unique gnosis. If every gnosis is modeled after a chess piece and there's only 5 kinds, not including pawns, then there's going to be repeats. When you set up the pieces for a game, the back row is the one with all the cool pieces that aren't pawns. In the middle is a king and a queen, and on each side there's a rook, bishop, and knight. So in the back row, there's 2 of everything that isn't a king or queen. We've already confirmed that Venti's gnosis is the queen, and it's likely that A's is the king. So Zhongli's gnosis is not unique. There should be one more Archon with a similar gnosis. Speaking of that, a full row in chess has 8 pieces, not 7. 7 has consistently been an important number in Genshin, so switching it to 8 may feel wrong to some of you. But if you remember all the way back when I first uploaded my Conria series, I pointed out that Celestia looks like it may have 8 islands. That's very subjective, considering that the renders we have of Celestia right now are really low quality, so I could just be misinterpreting the images, but to me it looks like 8. That outlying island could represent Conria. I also mentioned how the Abyss seems to function as an element. We've been told that there's only 7 elements, but clearly the Abyss is some kind of 8th element given how we see people like Dainsleif manipulate it. To me, this is our biggest clue that there's an 8th Archon and they must be the Archon of the Abyss. Our choices for who the Abyss Archon could be are limited. Dainsleif is an obvious candidate because we've seen him use abyssal energy and he's deeply connected to Conria, which is the supposed 8th nation under Celestia. I've talked about that in my Conria series before though, but I think I have one more person that could be the Abyss Archon. Just bear with me on this one because you're not going to believe me at first. Paimon could easily be the Abyss Archon that we need to identify. She's clearly not human, she seems to know a lot about Teyvat like all the other Archons do, and her cape is strikingly similar to what the Abyss element looks like when used. You could counter by saying that none of the Archons we've met recognize her, but remember that the Archons can shapeshift. And even if they did somehow recognize her in a different form than they knew her as before, it wouldn't even matter. I wouldn't put it past the Archons to play dumb. Venti and Zhongli did it a lot during their nation's respective Archon quests. A has been away from society for a long time and didn't do much in terms of being an Archon until her sister died, and Paimon tends to act kind of stupid. I can't confidently tell you whether or not I think Paimon is intentionally pretending to be dumb, but it's absolutely possible. Also, have we ever considered how Paimon can just fly for no reason? All of the other beings we see that are able to fly have actual methods of doing so. Venti uses animo, and all the animals with wings speak for themselves. Paimon is the only one who just randomly floats. When we saw Dainsleif use abyssal energy, he was able to use it to pick up a person off the ground and leave them floating in the air. Maybe Paimon is using that same abyssal energy to carry her body everywhere. That could be why when you and Paimon speak to Child after running from the Millelith, she says that it's tiring flying around all the time. She's overexerting herself with how much she uses her element because she's constantly using it. Every Archon's name comes from the Lesser Key of Solomon, which is an old book about demonology. Paimon's name also comes from the same book and same list of 72 demons. In the Lesser Key of Solomon, Paimon is one of the more important demons. I find it weird that we have significant demons like Baal as Archons while we have more obscure ones like Barbados and Morax as Archons too. I don't think that counts for much, but it could be a sign that Paimon is way more important than we think right now. One of my friends just finished the Liyue Archon quest for the first time and she pointed something out to me. She reminded me of a line that Paimon dropped at the very end of A New Star Approaches. When Zhongli is telling you and her about Inazuma and the Vision Hunt Decree, Paimon briefly mentions that she was in Inazuma 1 year ago when everything was normal. Yet when we go to Inazuma, no one recognizes her. That could be seen as proof of her ability to shapeshift and her vast knowledge of Teyvat. Maybe when Paimon was in Inazuma, she was actually under it. The storm that surrounds Inazuma has always been there. The inciting incident for A's story quest is that the storm is getting closer to the islands, so we know that even after the major conflict in Inazuma is resolved, the storm continues. It would be next to impossible for Paimon to get through it by herself. But if there were underground passageways that led to Inazuma and completely bypassed the storm, she would be fine. In my last video, I talked about the underground area in the center of Seirai Island likely being linked to Conria and how there are definitely underground tunnels throughout Teyvat. Paimon knows a lot about Teyvat. Even if she didn't come from Conria, she probably knows about those tunnels. And maybe the reason that no one recognizes her is that she never met them in the first place because she was underground the entire time. It's clear that there's a secret 8th Archon waiting to be discovered given what we know about the gnosis being chess pieces. We have a pretty good idea of that Archon's element and country being abyssal energy and Conria respectively, but we don't know who that Archon could be. Paimon is an unassuming but fitting candidate for that role. Honestly, I originally meant for this video to solely be focused on the chess theory, but seeing as it's not much of a theory and more of an observation and analysis, I thought I should come up with something more. Again, if you can, please let me know who came up with the chess theory originally, and I'll credit them. All of the Paimon stuff is from me, though. I hate to make it sound like I'm slandering Paimon because I actually really like her. Anyways, Kokomi's banner is almost here, so good luck to everyone pulling for her. I'm skipping because I got A recently, and I don't really feel like wailing for a healer, but if you want her, I wish you all the best. And thank you so much for 5,000 subscribers. That's so crazy, I never thought I would get more than 50. I know every YouTuber says this, but I really am so grateful. It makes me really happy to know that 5,000 people liked my channel enough to subscribe, so thank you so much for subscribing, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye, besties!